Filter changing instructions for AAAH, pronounced Water Alkaline System. Important notes that must be followed. Caution: read and observe all notes throughout these instructions before performing any step. Caution: once unit has been removed from under the sink, the unit is very unstable and must be handled very carefully as it may tip over. When handling the filters, wear latex gloves so that no oils from your skin or invisible bacteria gets on the filters or your hands. Have a clean open sink to drain water. Sanitize system as directed. After removing the used filters, place them in the large Ziploc or trash bag. When opening the new filters, open them with a new set of latex gloves. These instructions are only a guide and may not apply to your particular unit. Disclaimer: the customer is responsible for any damage to cabinet or plumbing and will hold AAAH Water Health LLC non-liable for any such damage. Note: as a suggestion, before disconnecting any tubing, take a picture to show how the tubing is connected. Note: recommend reading each section first before performing any of the steps. Here are the items that are included in your kit. A sediment filter. 2 carbon filters. A membrane. A taste filter. An alkaline filter. Some gloves. A bottle of sanitizing solution. A bobby pin. A roll of Teflon tape. A scrub brush. And an empty gallon jug. Let's get started. Step 1. Removing the unit from under the sink. Note: put on 1 pair of the latex gloves before you begin. 1. Open alkaline water spigot to relieve pressure and excess water. Shut off water from storage tank valve and then the water intake valve to the unit. 2. Place a towel or tray on the floor of your workspace. Place the system into the tray, or on the towel. Note: there may be zip ties on the tubing that need to be cut to pull the unit completely out from under the sink. 3. Note: ensure you have a tray or pan to catch the excess water from the tubing when you disconnect them. Tubing is held firmly in connectors with red or blue clips. Clips need to be removed and set aside for future use before tubing can be removed from the connectors. Disconnect the intake water line, usually a red tube, at the water intake valve above valve to the first filter. 4. Disconnect the drain line, usually a black tube, between the unit and the check valve at the unit side of the check valve. 5. Disconnect the line to the spigot, usually a blue tube, at the output of the post filter. 6. Disconnect the line to the storage tank, usually a yellow tube, at the input of the post filter. 7. Place the unit into the sink. (2) Filter removal steps. Note: tubing is held firmly in the connectors with red or blue clips. Clips need to be removed and set aside for future use before tubing can be removed from the connectors. (1) Disconnect the tubing from the post filter to the alkaline filter. Tilt the filter up to drain any water. Note: observe what connectors are on each end of the post filter. The T connector is the input side of the post filter. Remove the connectors at both ends of the post filter. Save the connectors for use on the new post filter. There may be clamps holding the filter to the alkaline filter. Remove clamps and set aside for future use. (2) Disconnect the tubing from the input of the alkaline filter. Tilt the filter up to drain any water. Note: Observe what connectors are on each end of the alkaline filter. Also note, tubing on the output connector of the alkaline filter should remain connected to the connector. Remove the connectors at both ends of the alkaline filter. Save the connectors for use on the new alkaline filter. There may be clamps holding the filter to the membrane canister. Disconnect the 3 tubes from the membrane canister. Disconnect the white tube from automatic shutoff valve to output of the last large canister below the housing bracket. Remove the black permeate pump with its clamp, automatic shutoff valve, and flow restrictor from the membrane canister. Set aside with tubing. Remove canister from unit and tilt up to drain any water. After the water has drained, use channel lock pliers and carefully remove the cap of the canister. Ensure O-ring is in place. There must be one, but there may be 2. After the cap has been removed, use the channel lock pliers to carefully remove the filter inside. Drain water from canister and the filter. 4. Using the large canister wrench, loosen each of the remaining canisters. Loosen the canisters by turning them in a clockwise direction. By hand, completely remove the canisters and filters from each canister. Drain any water in the canister. 5. Once all filters have drained, place them in a garbage bag and in the trash. There should be 6 filters in total removed. Remember to keep the 4 connectors from the old post and alkaline filters. 3. Sanitizing the unit. 1. Open the gallon of distilled water and add the sanitizing solution sent with the filters. Note, you may have to remove a tablespoon or 2 before adding the sanitizing solution. Shake the gallon up to mix the sanitizing solution in the distilled water. Set the gallon aside. 2. Using a bottle brush, clean all 4 canisters and the covers in cold or warm water to remove any sediment or extraneous matter from inside the canisters. Note, place your thumb over the small connector where water is escaping. 3. Using the gallon of sanitizing solution, pour a small amount of solution into the membrane canister. Ensuring the O-ring does not kink. Quickly put on the cap and shake the canister back and forth to sanitize the canister. Remove the cap and pour the solution into one of the 3 large canisters. Set aside the membrane canister. Divide the rest of the gallon sanitizing solution evenly between all 3 large canisters. 4. Attach the 3 large canisters to the unit bracket holding the tops of the canisters. Hand tighten each canister and shake the entire unit back and forth for a good minute. Set the unit down and let set for 10 minutes. 5. After 10 minutes, remove the canisters from the holding bracket and rinse with warm or cold water. Let canisters drain. Rinse the membrane canister and cap with warm or cold water and set aside. Your unit is now sanitized. 4. Preparing filters for installation. Note: remove the latex gloves from your hands before you begin. 1. Using a safety pin or similar item, remove the Teflon tape from the threaded ends of the 4 saved connectors. 2. Open the Teflon tape roll provided. While holding the connector in your left hand, wrap tape in a clockwise direction 4 or 5 turns around the threaded end of the connector. Cut Teflon tape. Complete wrapping to the end of tape. 3. Repeat step 2 for the remaining 3 connectors. Now thread the 4 connectors to the ends of filter number 5 and filter number 6 filters where you had removed them as detailed in steps 1 and 2 of the filter removal steps. Set filters aside. (5) Reassembling the unit and flushing filters. Note: put on the second pair of the latex gloves before you begin. 1. Locate filter number 1 and place inside one of the large canisters. Locate filters number 2 and number 3 and place them inside the other 2 large canisters. (2) Attach the large canister with filter number 1 to the bracket housing next to the unit intake line. Attach the remaining 2 large canisters to the bracket housing. Hand tighten all 3 canisters and using the large canister wrench, give the canisters a small turn to tighten completely. Locate filter number 4 and place it inside the membrane canister. Note: you will have to press the membrane filter extra hard to get it to seat firmly in the bottom of the canister. You may have to wiggle the filter around to get it to seat properly. Hand tighten the cap onto the membrane canister. 3. Attach the membrane canister with filter number 4 inside to the clamps on the top of the housing bracket. Replace permeate pump, automatic shutoff valve, and flow restrictor to the membrane housing and last large canister below the housing bracket ere you disconnected them in step 3 of the filter removal steps. Replace the clips to hold the tubing firmly in the connectors. Exception: Do not connect the input tubing to the membrane canister at this time. Note: ensure you have a container to capture the water expelled from the unit during the flushing process. 3. Attach the intake valve to the unit at the intake tubing. Attach the permeate pump drain tubing to the drain line at the check valve on the drain line. Hold a container or bucket under the membrane canister's input tubing. Turn on the intake valve halfway and let the large canisters fill with water. Once water is coming out into the bucket, turn the intake valve on fully and let the filters flush until water comes out clear. Four. Turn off the intake valve and connect the membrane canister input line to the membrane canister input. Replace the clips to hold the tubing firmly in the connectors. Turn on the intake valve. Let the membrane flush for 2 or 3 minutes. Turn off the intake valve. 6. After water stops, connect filter number 5 to the membrane canister using the clamps removed in step 2 of filter removal steps above. Ensure that the input of the filter is facing the permeate side of the permeate pump. Connect the tubing from the permeate output side of the permeate pump to the input connector of the alkaline filter. Secure tubing with clip. Empty the container and move it under the output tube of the alkaline filter. Turn on intake valve. Let alkaline filter flush for 2 or 3 minutes. Note: to assist the water to move through the permeate pump and into the alkaline filter, place a finger over the end of the alkaline filter output tube to cause a vacuum. Then remove your finger. This will suck the water through the filter quicker. You may need to do this several times before the water starts coming out. You should also hear the permeate pump activate while your finger is over the end of the tube. Turn off the intake valve. 7. Connect filter number 6 to the alkaline filter using clamps removed in step 1 of removing filter steps. Ensure the T connector is facing the brine side of the permeate pump. After water stops running, connect output tube of alkaline filter to T section of the T connector. Connect the tubing going to the spigot to the output connector of the post filter. Connect the tubing going to the storage tank to the inline section of the T connector. Secure all tubing with clips removed earlier in step 1 of filters removed steps. Ensure spigot is on and tank valve is off. Turn on the intake valve. 8. Once water starts running from the spigot, turn the spigot off. Listen for permeate pump activation. Once permeate pump stops, check all tubing connections for leaks. If there are leaks, you probably need to reseat the tubing in the connectors or tighten the canisters. Do this by turning on the spigot and turning off the intake valve before addressing the leak. If there are no leaks, turn the spigot on. After water stops, turn spigot off. Listen to the permeate pump to reactivate. Once pump stops, turn spigot on. After the water stops, turn spigot off. Repeat this action until the water runs clear out of the spigot. Once the water is clear, turn on the storage tank valve. This will allow the old water in the storage tank to fully drain. Once the water has stopped, turn the spigot off. This will allow the unit to fill the tank with new water from the new filters. (9) Place the unit back under the sink and secure all tubing with zip ties provided if desired. After 1 hour, turn the spigot on. Once water stops, turn spigot off. Repeat this a second time and your unit is now ready for service. Remember that your water will look cloudy as these are the oxygen bubbles from your new filters. These bubbles are good to drink. Continue to enjoy your AAAH Water Alkaline Water System.